considering the first, 30 seconds of each YouTube video are the most important, I kind of decided to not kind of do these introductions, safety announcement. You know what to do, you know to stay safe on the road, and I hope you have a good morning. But yeah, let's get right into it. So if you were wondering why I don't say good morning and stuff like that anymore in these vlogs, it's because those 30 seconds are supposedly the most important. So today's vlog is all about loneliness. I kind of wanted to talk about this because the topic of loneliness was always a huge deal in my life. When I was younger, I often had the feeling of loneliness, to be quite honest. And I was a kid that always was sometimes bullied, but more often, I don't know, why did you honk at me? But more often than not was a little bit, not taken seriously or not taken hurt, or wasn't being hurt, because I am always the shortest person in the room. So most of the kids thought, they could kind of pick on me or whatever I was saying, or they could kind of disregard just based on my size. Then I was the only Asian kid with, I would argue, not the best German language skills. Although I was born here, I was somewhat exposed to the Indonesian language. My parents were actually pretty much of the belief, okay, we don't want to confuse our child with two languages. Therefore, we don't want to kind of raise him or consciously teach him the Indonesian language in addition to the German language. So we mostly spoke German at home, but they also spoke Indonesian in between themselves, and every year we went to Indonesia when I was really little. So I did pick up a lot of Indonesian language, although not actively. I did pick it up and therefore learn it, which unfortunately also somehow confused my German. So my German, at least from my perspective and looking at how people reacted to me, wasn't that great. That was another reason why some people didn't take me seriously or didn't even bother to listen to my opinion or suggestions. For example, one thing that always happened is, okay, what are we going to play or what are we going to do? And I kind of made a suggestion, and the kids didn't want to kind of listen to me and said like something like, oh, okay, we didn't understand, or they did understand me, but took my language, although it sounds like I didn't speak German, but I did speak German. But I sometimes, when I was a kid, I mixed around like the sentence structure. So I put like the verb at the end, so kind of like Yoda-style, which sometimes obviously sounded funny, and therefore the other kids didn't really take me seriously and were kind of scoffing away my suggestions what to play, for example. And when we got older, it was sometimes the idea of, okay, where could we go to kind of hang out or where we could do a party, which then led to somewhat of a defensive mechanism for me, where I rather did stuff for myself or kept my opinion to myself, because I didn't want to be ridiculed for my opinion or my suggestions. And therefore this defense mechanism was to kind of stick to myself and just do whatever I thought was in my mind correct or was working for me. That on the other hand, led to a situation where I always wanted to go to a university and do something like audio engineering, but my parents didn't have the money to kind of pay for that study for that university, because it was a private school. And therefore I went the route of, okay, I'm going to do internships, and I went to do an internship at that film company, which was a blessing because I learned so much, and that is where I kind of became an editor, and it kind of paved the way to become an editor. But all of that work, obviously, if you may know, most internships, they kind of get like overworked and, for the lack of a better word, abused in a way that, okay, you are going to do long hours. So I did a lot of long hours. I worked my ass off to get to a point, or to the point where I am now. And a lot of my friends who went to university were kind of thinking, what the hell is Bo doing? That is kind of stupid what he's doing. He's basically working for free. And some of the people said like, oh, are you going to do something proper? Are you ever going to work? Or what is this, what you're doing? It seems like something stupid. And that obviously really, it discouraged me and it put me down. But fortunately, this defense mechanism kicked in, and I was like, oh, I'm doing my thing. And I kind of went away from a lot of these people, not in a way that, in a let's say, bad way where I said like, oh, I hate you and I don't want to have anything to do with you, but rather I'm going to distance myself to work on this thing that I want to do. And so I lost a lot of friends. Not lost in terms of they are not my friends anymore, but in terms of we lost a little bit of contact for a long time. And in an effort to kind of become an editor and doing my job, and also I had a lot of money issues with my parents and myself. I had to support my parents. So one of the things that I really wanted that whatever I was doing is working out. And I worked, as I said, I worked a lot and tried to be as good as possible in my job. But that came with loneliness, obviously. I was distancing myself to friends because I needed and wanted to work. And this feeling of loneliness became bigger and bigger. And also the fear of, one of my biggest fears when I was younger was to die alone. To die of loneliness and not have anyone around me to kind of take care of me. But I never really worked against it. I rather worked to become better at my craft and to be better at myself. I did a lot of therapy because of that, but it also made me grow a lot. And now I've went to a party of one of my friends with my wife a couple of weeks ago. And I also reconnected with a lot of the friends that now obviously have families, have kids, and work their 9-to-5s. And I realized that some of them are really unhappy with the situation they are in at the moment, because they're not happy with their work, or their whole life is really crowded with their work and whatever they have to do. And obviously that isn't great. I need to kind of get into, wow, traffic is crazy. Hold on, I need to merge and, okay, where was I? Yeah, so we went to this party and I saw that a lot of my friends are really unhappy, and I kind of talked to my wife about that and to kind of give me some reflections on my life. And she said, Bo, you grew to a point. I know that that was always like something where you were struggling with, that you felt lonely, that you don't have that many friends, close friends, or all of the friends you had are kind of distancing from you, or not from you, but you kind of noticed that you are growing apart, or you have grown apart, and you are so different, all of you. And that is totally okay. And the thing that is now different with you, you learned to be alone. You learn to be okay with yourself, to know what to do when you are alone, and you are successful by working alone, by being alone. And all of the times that you try to kind of reconnect with your old friends, you always say like, oh, we somehow don't have anything to talk about and it feels a little bit weird. Oh, I can't. Why don't I just... Yeah. Why don't you, whenever you meet up, you feel like, oh, you have nothing to talk about and it feels a little bit distant, but that is all because you grew so much in your own character. You don't need anyone. And that's not a negative thing. She didn't mean that in a negative thing in terms of, oh, you are like a loner or something, but you are so comfortable with being alone, with doing things for yourself, doing your own hobbies and stuff like that. And you are, she said like something, you are extremely comfortable like with yourself, and you don't need other people to kind of pass the time or something. And that made me realize that's totally right. And I'm not afraid anymore of being by myself or being lonely in a way. And that was a huge eye-opener, because the fear of being lonely was such a big thing. It was really depressing me when I was younger, and I was very sad about not being able to be recognized or connect to other people, because when I connected, it somehow always, I was always the butt of the end. Is that the word? The end of the joke, or the butt of the end of the joke, or something? Where the jokes were always made not with me, but on my back, you know? And that was always a little bit hurtful for me, and that kind of fueled this fear of loneliness. Because the biggest thing is when you are surrounded by people and you think you have a lot of friends, but you actually feel lonely because some people kind of make jokes about you or don't really listen to you, it kind of exaggerates this feeling of loneliness, to be confused. It exaggerates the feeling of loneliness, because you think, oh, there are so many people around me and I shouldn't be alone, right? But in the end, you feel alone, because even though there are so many people, you don't feel recognized in a way. And now that I kind of noticed, oh, I actually feel very okay with not having that many friends. Let me rephrase that. I have a lot of friends, but I don't have that many very tight-knit and close friends. So that is totally okay for me. And I honestly feel sometimes even better being by myself and doing stuff for myself, working for myself, doing these hobbies for myself. Yes, I sometimes wish there are some people around me who I could kind of nerd out or share stuff with. But I honestly somehow feel like, okay, it's totally okay that I don't. And whenever I meet up with old friends, it's also sometimes it's depressing to kind of notice, oh, either we have grown apart so much, or it makes me sad to see them being in a point in their life where they feel very frustrated and unhappy, and I cannot help in any way. And therefore, it's sometimes for me better to be by myself. I don't know if this is relatable in any way. I feel like we all do feel lonely, but I guess if you at some point can kind of realize that you are okay with yourself and you don't necessarily need other people, or your priorities have shifted. For example, some of my friends, their priorities are purely with their family, and that is all they need to kind of not feel lonely. But then on the other hand, there are people that have a family and they do feel lonely because they sometimes need a different kind of surroundings, because they want to kind of re-energize. Yeah, but I don't know. How are you? Do you feel lonely sometimes? And if not, how do you kind of work around that? Let everyone know in the comments. I feel like this is such an important topic, and would love to kind of start a conversation about that in the comment section. So share your thoughts and or questions if you kind of need some advice or whatever. Maybe I can share some more thoughts besides what I was talking about in this vlog. And if you maybe check out my vlog about mental health in the video up here. YouTube thinks that you like the video down here. Don't forget maybe to like and hype this video, but also click the subscribe button so we can see each other in the next vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and drive safe.